Welcome back to DCGCC, where we bring you governmental information and classical entertainment. I am Governor Dr. Elizabeth Samantha Rothschild, Judge, Governor of the Federal Estate of Washington, District of Columbia. Back with part two. Let's pick up where I left off. So, working in autonomy, police officers, you have to have the knowledge in your job description and know who to listen to. Listening to someone who is habitually criminal or could be committing criminal misconduct should be obvious to you because that's in the legal field. Average persons would know that. Being a judge, I've watched a lot of people make that mistake about wanting to prove some point of power so badly that they need to feel empowered by belittling or casting down my educational value and my value to the government and the public to seem better than me. And it's a point where they're trying to be self-confident the wrong way. And so working in autonomy, let me get my list back up here. Working in autonomy, you need valid information. So what happened is the officer actually handcuffed me. And yes, he did get me somewhere safely. Yes, he did engage an emergency strategy, which prevented the persons who were trying to abduct me by causing that and have me detained against my will by abducting me through under the auspices of taking care of business for their organizations or companies or whatever, and committing criminal misconduct. He kept me safe from them and the persons who were waiting at this place they call CPEP, who conspired to have me brought there. And they put together and orchestrated an entire ordeal. And yes, they're still working at the shelter. The person at the behavioral health center, well, I'll get to them when I get to that part of my trusts, because do it, you may get away with it, you won't. And I believe that firmly about everything in my life, especially dealing with the government, especially that I am under controlled authority from who regulates me. And it's not the persons at the shelter, it's not the police. When I call someone a true authority, I'm meaning with regard to their description of what they do, because for what I do, I am the truth. And it was actually insulting. And that is what had happened. That's why I left Texas. They kept doing that and kidnapping me and taking me to the jail against my will. A police officer arriving and preferring to take the word of a criminal, just like when my property was embezzled. They took the words of the criminals who were inside of my property, although I'm standing there with proof of my uh, purchase that can be verified with the IRS. Refusing to verify information, you have to verify and make sure what you know and what's going on is valid when you're exercising autonomy, because that means you're accountable for the entire situation. I take complete accountability for the mental health of the persons who work at the shelter, as well as those who are at the shelter, for where I have to interact with them because I'm a behavioral neuroscientist. And to be addressed by someone from the Department of Behavioral Health, which is what happened, a man autonomous in his position, kept badgering me and asking me, am I suicidal, when what needed was that something secure would come and assist me because I was under attack by criminal stalkers and harassers who wouldn't leave me alone so that I could do my work and go about my way. And that never gets reported. So the fact that it never gets reported is because really we don't want to make a big deal out of something that can be nipped in the bud. And when law enforcement can understand that their duty is not to show off in front of others like they have a greater power. I see that you have your guns and weapons. I used to be a police officer myself. I too was a cop, and I understand the autonomy of the position. And to be insulted by persons who refuse to grasp information, and they are in uniform with a badge and holding the rights of authority, the right to bear witness and arms at the same time. And that those persons who don't know who to listen to, I'm a government official. I shouldn't have to keep explaining that to persons. And so to be subjected to that sort of thing could happen to persons who are in and affected by the government shutdown at whatever capacity they can afford to live. So when my cash flow gets started from my government position, it could in some effect be affected by the government shutdown because some of the position is attributed to time at Congress. And so I could actually suffer temporary pay cuts whenever the government shuts down. It would affect my budget, and it would affect some of the few DC cabinet budget, definitely some of the few DC Congress budget. And so we want to be helpful to make sure that we don't suffer from the government shutdown. But in the meantime, we need to understand the compromise of socioeconomic displacement and how sometimes it brings us into interactions with people who do not conduct themselves orderly for our official duty and for what we are. They don't know how to speak to us and address us. And this is what I'll tell you. You can be around those people that don't understand for a long time, and some may never grasp the understanding, because I've been around some for going on a little more than 2 years now at the public shelter, and they still haven't totally grasped it. I still have the problems and issues. I still have the problems and issues having to explain to police officers that are arriving when everyone, it is your accountability to know and be in the know responsibly. All right, so let's start wrapping this up. Things that are not so crucial, it is impairment with the threat of danger of disruption of life activities that affect quality of life. So sometimes having to deal with particular things, have meetings with people who really have no business using that much of my time, or having to speak to authorities that are, they're not coming to arrest anyone. Everything is okay, but they do have to talk. Okay, but that's a threat of danger of disruption. It's disrupting my workflow. It's disrupting my life. And I don't want that to be interfering with the work that I have to do for the government, number one, because I want to be as accurate and transparent as possible, and being responsive to anger and aggression, especially passive aggressiveness. It feels irritated. And those are the things that we don't want to display when conveying governmental information. We want to be at peace. We want more justice and more peace. So the threat is not really so crucial as a debilitating factor as it is just wanting the peace to work and not wanting to be bothered with unnecessary interruptions. It is the way of the work world where people get real work done in the real world, especially in government positions, especially government officials. All right, so I have two more things maybe. Let's look at our time. We could shout out to the sports commissioner of UDC and hello to all of the sports teams. I throw that in there. And let's see. Comments and harassment on social media. Okay, I'll say this. On my social media, when someone posts on my social media and it's something silly like offering me a job or trying to speak to me as though I know who's behind the avatar, it's really a nuisance. And I've started to block sites off of my LinkedIn because I don't want to be bothered with that. And I don't like to get up and look at my notifications and see a notification from someone who's only reaching out to me to be a nuisance, and they don't know the right things to say and refuse to follow along with the information. My profile is there, making comments on my post, even when I'm posting on someone else's post that are obtuse or adverse to my profile, and then questioning me when the information is right there on my profile. That's a waste of my time. I don't have time for that, and I won't spend a lot of time for that. That's all there is to that. All right. About reviewing information I've already covered. We're making progress. So I'm not going to have to repeat everything in chronological order. As it's developing, we're moving to the next thing. So when it comes up for review, we're adding to it. So we're not going to spend a lot of time reviewing the basics of anything because we've moved past those first steps and it's time to keep progressing and working in continuity. Okay, so the types of people who are offensive to government officials, dignitaries, and public officials, such as judges and physicians. We have to be concerned about what they teach their families about conduct and interactions, how they're teaching and encouraging their children to behave in the schools, how they bear influence on their jobs and in their communities where people actually listen to them and want to get along with them. So they're trying to take them for face value, but all they have is the negative energy about dignitaries and public officials. Well, they're not getting the work done. We can't, they can't keep to themselves and they do not understand their individuality. They bear opinions about things of which they're not knowledgeable. They have no idea what's called for and what it takes. And when discovering what's called for and what it takes, they haven't the self-esteem or the verge, the urge, the determination to accomplish anything. And we can't worry about persons like that, but they're everywhere, even on our social media. I deal with it at the homeless shelter. Some types are in the room with me. Some types actually work there. So we work beyond that and we keep progressing because we've come a very long way. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and end this here and we'll pick back up again next in service. You all have a great day.